Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we are going to build a horizontal scroll web page with animations using JavaScript library Scrollmagic and GSAP. Let me show you the demo that we are going to build in this video. Alright, so this is the web page that we are going to build. We have a background image and there is some text on the background. Now if I scroll this page, you will see that the page is scrolling horizontally. And once the page is scrolled horizontally, you will see that there is an animation text that is being displayed on the page. So if we go further, then you will see that there are different types of animation on the text that is being displayed on the screen. So this is what we are going to build in this page. It's going to be exciting and it's going to be very interesting because we are going to use JavaScript library, Scrollmagic and GSAP animation, and we will be doing the animation purely in JavaScript. So if this sounds interesting, then watch the video till the end. Also make sure you don't forget to subscribe my channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. So let's get started. Alright, so I have the folder structure created for this project. You can see that I have an HTML file. Then in the JavaScript folder, I have a JavaScript file. For CSS, I have style.css, and I have already the images which I'm going to use. So we will be creating 5 sections with these 5 images. So before we start, first let's talk about the libraries or the dependencies that we will be needed in order to do this project. So let me go to the CDN. So I'm going to the CDN website, and from the CDN we need two libraries. The one is the GSAP library and the other one is the Scrollmagic. So let me add the GSAP library first. So I'm just going to copy the script tag from here, and then I'm going to simply add the script tag. So I'm going to add the script tag. All right, and next we want is the Scrollmagic library. So to get the Scrollmagic library, let's go back here and we need the Scrollmagic. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here. Then we will also need the plugin so that the Scrollmagic can take control of the GSAP animation. So for that, I will need the plugin animation GSAP. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste this as well. And the last, we will also take the indicators. So this indicators will actually help us to add the indicators when we actually do the animation so that we can do the debugging. So I'm going to copy this script tag as well and I'm going to add it. All right. So these are the 4 libraries we will be needed for this project. And apart from that, I also added the script.js, which is the R script file. We are going to write some of the JavaScript in order to do the animation and use this GSAP and Scrollmagic. And I have added a Google font link, and I have added the CSS file itself. All right, so first let's create the markup of the page. So in order to create the markup of the page, I already have 2 divs. One is a wrapper div and another one is the sections. So inside this section, I'm going to create 5 sections. So let's create that markup. All right, so I'm going to create a section with a class of section, and I need 5 sections. So I'm going to write 5, and inside the section I am also need the content div. So that for that I'm going to write a div and I'm going to give a class of content, and inside the content div I need the h4 tag for my section heading. So for that I'm going to write h4 and I'm going to give a class of section title to it, and then I need a paragraph tag. So for that I'm going to write a p and I'm going to hit enter. So now I have a section and I have a content, then I have a section title, and here I'm going to write a section 1, and I'm just simply going to copy this to all my section titles. All right, and then for the paragraph tag I'm just going to add the lorem ipsum. So I have added the section and the lorem ipsum text in my paragraph Now let's see actually how this page looks like. If I refresh it, then yeah, I can see I have a section 1 and a content, section 2 and content, 3 content, 4 content and 5 content. And you will notice that I also see some background images, and that is because I already had some of the CSS in my CSS file. Let me give you a walkthrough of the CSS. I simply had the body with the font, and then I have the main wrapper, which is the main wrapper, this one. And to the main wrapper, I have just given a width of 100%, height of 100%, and overflow hidden. And for all the 5 sections, I have simply given the backgrounds to them. So now we are going to write some more CSS because this won't be enough. All right, so for the first thing we are going to do is for the section. So we need the content to be in the center of the screen, and it should be one below the other. So for that, what we are going to do, we are going to write a CSS to the section, and for the section I'm going to give a height of 100 VH. Then the width I'm going to do is I'm going to use a cal function of CSS, and in the cal function I'm going to do 100% divide by 5, and then I'm going to give a position of relative. I'm going to use display flex to get my content to the center, and I'm going to use the flex direction as column, and I'm going to do the justify content as center, and I'm going to do the align items center. I'm going to give a background size of cover so that we get our image, background image properly. All right, and one more thing we need to give is we need to give a float of left so that all our images or all our sections are now one next to each other. All right, and the next thing we will do is we are going to add a CSS to the sections, which is the parent or the container of the all the sections. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the sections, and to the sections I'm going to add width of 500%, and I will be adding the height of 100%. As we already know that we have 5 images, and so that's why I'm giving a width of 500%. So now if I save it, and if we see, then we have an image complete, but the image is very bright, so I'm thinking of giving an overlay on the image. So let's add the overlay. So what I'm going to do for the overlay, I'm just going to create a div with the class of overlay. All right, so now I have added the div of class overlay to all the sections. Now we can add some CSS so that we can get a little bit of black overlay on my images. Dot layer, and to the layer I'm going to give a background color of RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0.8, and it will be having a position of absolute, and I'm going to give a top of 0, right of 0, bottom of 0, and left of 0. Width should be 100% and height should be 100%. So this is the very standard overlay we usually create for our pages. So I'm going to write a content, and to the content I'm going to do a width of 50%. All right, and the color of the content should be white, and I'm going to give a position of relative to it, and the text align should be in center. And for the paragraph tag, so for the paragraph I'm going to write a section, and for the paragraph I'm going to give a font size of 1.3 rem, and I'm going to give a font weight of 300, a line height of 2 rem. All right, and let's add the CSS to the section title, which is the h4 tag. So for the section title I'm going to write section title, and to the section title I'm going to give a font size of 30 pixel, and then I'm going to give a margin bottom font weight, so that font weight should be 400. All right, and now let's see how actually the web page looks like. So if I see, then you can see the web page is actually looks okay, And let's also see if it goes to the smaller screen, how it looks. So I guess for the smaller screen, let me change this section width, which is a 50. I'm going to give a 80. So I'm going to use a media all, and I'm going to use a max width of 768 pixels. So if it goes below 768 pixels, then the content width should be equal to 80%. All right. So if I save it, okay, now it looks better. If width of the screen goes to 768, less than 768, then the width of the content will go to 80% instead of 50%. All right, so now we have done the markup, we have done the CSS. Now it's time for the JavaScript, where we actually need to have a scroll on the page. This is what we are going to build. So we need this part animation and the scroll part. So that's what we are going to do now. All right, so let's go to the JavaScript now. So inside the JavaScript, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to take the reference of all our contents, because we want to animate the content. So to get the reference of all our content, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a document query selector, and I'm going to get all the content. All right, so now I have all the content, and the next thing I'm going to do is we are using a Scrollmagic. So we are going to create a controller in the Scrollmagic. So for the creating a controller, I'm going to write a constant controller, and this controller will equals to new Scrollmagic. What? So now we have a reference of the Scrollmagic controller, and what we have to do in the end is first we need to create a timeline. So in order to create a timeline, we are using a GSAP library, and in the GSAP library, we can actually do the timeline max. So using the feature of the timeline max, we are going to create a timeline. So I'm going to give a name of T1, and I'm going to write a new timeline max. All right. And once we are done with the timeline, what we actually do is we create the complete scene. So in order to create the complete scene, we will do a new scroll magic dot scene. And this scene is going to take an object. So we are going to give an object to this, and it is going to have three elements. The first element is the trigger element. So when you want to trigger this scroll magic, and if we know that we want to trigger this scroll magic on our parent wrapper, so that we are going to do, we are going to write a trigger element, and this trigger element is the selector, what selector you want to use for this trigger element. So I'm going to use the trigger element as JS wrapper. So I'm just going to copy and I'm just going to paste it. All right. The next thing is the trigger hook. So the trigger hook is going to have three values. So those three values will be either you want to trigger your animation on the start, or on the center, or on the leave. So you can have the values as 0, as 1, or as 0.5. 0.5 means that you want to start your animation at the center, and we want that our animation should start at the bottom. So that means that once the page is completely slide, and then our animation of the text should start. So for that, what I'm going to do, we want this to be on leave, and we can give the duration of what duration you want for the animation. So I'm going to use the duration for 400%, and this 400% is that we are having 5 slides, or the 5 sections. The first section is already visible, so for the next 4 sections I'm going to add 100, 100, 100, which close to the 400. So you have created the scene. Next thing is you want to set the pin. So there is a function called set pin, and this set pin, I'm going to add the same trigger element. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this. I know this is a little bit new syntax to you, but once you understand this, and once you try to make 2 or 3 web pages using the scroll magic or a GSAP animation, you will be very familiar with this part. All right, and then what we will do now, we have created the timeline, which is we also call the tween. Now we need to set this tween to our scroll magic. So one more thing, that if we don't add this duration here, then the control of the timeline or the tween will not be with the scroll magic. So if you want the control should be shifted from the tween timeline to the scroll magic, then we need to add a duration here. And one more recommendation is, whenever you want the control of your timeline or your scene should go to the scroll magic, then you should add here tween light dot default is should be equals to linear dot is none, because we want the animation control should go to the scroll magic. So for that we have added. Now we will add the set tween, and the timeline we created is the T1 which I have added. And in the end, what we can do, we need to add the complete scene to the controller of the scroll magic. So for that, I'm going to add this to the controller. All right. And for the debugging purpose, how the animation on scroll will happen, what we are going to do, we are going to add the indicators. So to add the indicators, we simply write add in indicator, the indicators. And this indicator will take an object, and the object will be color trigger. So when the animation will trigger, I want that indicator should be of white color. All right. And when the actual animation is going to start, so you have three things. One is your trigger indicator, that at this point it's going to trigger. Another thing is, at this point your animation is going to start, and there is a third point which is the end, where your animation is actually going to end. So we have this color start, and for the end I'm going to write the end, and I'm going to give a color of black, and for this I'm going to give a color of red would be okay. So let's save it. All right. So now I have saved it, and let's see, does we have any errors? Oh, okay, so we have an error, and it says that timeline max is not defined. Okay, so we have made a small typo, so this L should be not be in a capital. So I'm going to write this L again. So now if I write it, then you can see that we are not getting any errors. And you will also see that now we have the trigger, which we had the color of the trigger to be white. So this is the trigger element. So if I scroll it, nothing is actually happening at the moment. And this is the end trigger, which is the color end. So now we have set everything, but we haven't actually created the timeline, that on scroll what actually stuff should get happen. So that is where the last part we have to do it. And in order to do it, we have the reference of our timeline as T1. So what I'm going to do, the first thing is I'm going to add the timeline sequence. So for that, I'm going to do T1 dot to, and this two can have four parameters. The first one is the selector which you want to set. So my selector will be, I want to set this on where, yeah, the JS slider container. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to add this here. So this is my selector. The next thing is the duration of your animation. So for now, let's try 0.5. All right. And the third thing is, when you actually do the animation property you want to animate. So for me, the property which we want to animate is the x axis. So when we scroll it, so the total is 100, and what we are going to do is, when we scroll it, the x percentage I want to move it by 20. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do an x percent, and the value should be minus 20. All right. And this one is, we done it for the slider, the main slide, or the main parent of all the sections. But once the slide happens, we actually want to do some animation on our text as well. So for that, what I'm going to do, once this is done too, and then I'm going to write a T1 dot from this time. And for the content, so I'm going to take my first content, and I need a duration of my animation as 0.5, and the third will be an object. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to give a opacity to be 0. All right, so For the content, I have added that it should take 0.5 seconds to get the opacity from 0 to 1. All right, so we did this for the first one. We need to do it for all the sections. So I'm going to copy this 4 times, and the two will be the same, only the percentage will get vary. So now it's 20, it will go to 40, then it's going to go to 60, and then it's going to go to 80. All right, and the opacity will be the same. The only thing is the content will get changed, and this will become 4. All right, let me save this. Now you can see that we are actually getting a scroll. The page is getting scrolled. So let's scroll the page. So when I scroll the page, I can see my section 2, I can see my section 3, I can see my section 4, and I can see my section 5, and then it ends. So the scroll is happening, the scroll is working, the section is also getting opacity of 1. But what we can do more is we can actually create or add more properties to it. So let me add some more properties to show you. All right, so what I'm going to do is when actually you scroll your page, I need the opacity, but along with the opacity, I need to scale the content. So I need to scale the content with 2.5. What I'm going to do for the third one, I'm going to use some more properties. I'm going to give a left of 400, and I'm going to give a top of 400. So it's going to coming from left top to the center of the screen. And for the other one, I'm going to do a right of 400, and I'm going to do a bottom of 400. And for the last one, what I'm going to do is scaling, plus we are going to do a rotation. So you can do a rotation, and I'm going to give a rotation of 27. All right, so let me save it and let's see now. So now if I scroll it, then you can see that we have the perfect animation of our text. And then if we go to next, then we get the section 3, which is coming from the bottom and right. And if we go, and then for the section 4, we are coming it from the left and the top. And for the last one, we are getting a rotation of 27-degree. And then you can see that the end marker is now reaching to the trigger point. That means the complete animation or the timeline is completed. So this is how you can actually create some cool and amazing websites using your GSAP and the Scrollmagic. All right, so if you don't want these indicators, you can actually remove your indicators. You just need to comment this out. All right, and now if I save it, then you will see that there are no indicators. All right, so that's how cool animation you can actually achieve it from GSAP. So in the coming days, we are going to explore more the GSAP animation library. There are a lot of features, and we are going to explore features one by one, and I'm going to create more videos on those features. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope this video is helpful to you in understanding the GSAP and doing some animation for your websites, which actually look a little bit cool. Because if you want to do such animations via CSS, then it's pretty hard, and not hard, you can say. I mean, you need to do a lot of stuff to do this kind of animation, but JavaScript makes it very easy for you. So I hope you like the video. A thumbs up is appreciated. Before you go, you don't forget to subscribe my channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. You can also connect with me via Facebook or Instagram. I will add the link in the description below, and you can also find this code link in the description so that you can download it and you can play around it. So thank you. Thanks for watching.